You see if people
Yeah,
come
yeah,
up
I
here
see,
to let
I
them
see
in.
that. Okay. Okay. Good morning. We're going to talk about not birthdays today. We're going to talk about a yurt site, but before I mentioned the famous yurt site coming up, it's famous to me and my family also. My mother's yurt site was last week on Yud Ches Tammuz. So the Shiur is also in memory to my mother. I'll say it in the Hasidic way. My mother's name was Sarah Maryam Bas Harav Usher Anshul Yechiel HaKoyen. So if you can say that 3 times fast, you'll be a winner. Okay. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't start off with a controversial topic. So I gave everybody, thanks to Janusz, I gave everybody a page, which please look at. It's from the Wall Street Journal last week, maybe a week and a half ago. And I blocked out who it is. If you want to find out who it is, you could easily find out who it is by going online. But we don't have to, especially in the 3 weeks, we don't have to know who it is. What this journalist wrote is, and I have a few places with stars. So let me just read a little bit. We shut out the busy world to focus on the Jewish day of rest because God rested too after his 6 days of creation. But the world doesn't reciprocate. When we block out, politicians may work 9 to 5, but the same isn't true of war, weather, sports, and disease. Since we can't go online during the Sabbath, we cling to our print newspaper subscriptions, like cherished family heirlooms. And what this journalist continues to write is, in my family, everyone comes to the traditional Sabbath lunch with prepared remarks. They're getting the newspapers in the morning, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. My father adopts a historical perspective. My mother is concerned with free speech and religious liberty. My brothers discuss the weekly Torah portion or the Mets. My sisters offer what they've learned in business and medical school. I play devil's advocate at a table that leans conservative. My brother-in-law is the lone liberal defending his convictions. The last line, the last paragraph. Even if you don't celebrate the Jewish Sabbath, consider observing an online news Sabbath and renewing your print subscription to the newspaper. It may work wonders on how you make sense of the world. And we see something that I am guilty of. I assume many of us may have been guilty of this. Of course, Rabbi Yudin will tell you that newspapers are very possibly muktzah if they are delivered on Shabbos. Whether or not you subscribe to that, there is a natural tendency to find out how did the Mets do? How did the Yanks do? What's going on in the rest of the world? What's going on in Israel, which is of course very close to our hearts. But is there anything wrong with this picture? Is there anything wrong with this picture? It reminds me of what the Pirkei Avos says, beginning of Perek Beis. I'm not sure if this week is Perek Beis, but in the beginning of Perek Beis, the Mishnah tells us you have to consider schar aveira keneged hefseda and schar mitzvah keneged hefseda. When it's time to do a mitzvah and to abstain from an aveira, you have to make an accounting. You have to figure out what you're gaining by not doing the aveira, what you're losing, and what you're gaining by the mitzvah. And conversely, to avoid a mitzvah, what are you losing by not doing the mitzvah? And what are you gaining, the fleeting gain that you're getting from doing the Avera? Give me a second, I should have it here. Yes, in the Meiri, in my family, my cousins Max and Jenny Weil, Aleim Shalom in Israel, very big Balei Tzedakah, subsidized, sponsored is a better word, the Meiri on Pirkei Avos, the translation, New Meiri on Pirkei Avos. You can get it at your local Jewish bookstore. But Meiri explains that according to the commentaries that understand, you have to be mechashed, schar mitzvah, keneged hefseder, you have to account, you have to understand, you have to make an accounting for the reward of a schar mitzvah, the reward of a mitzvah against its loss. What does it mean? It means if you feel that by keeping a certain mitzvah, you will suffer some monetary or other loss, that loss will be insignificant in your eyes once you weigh it against the reward that will be set aside for you for keeping the mitzvah. Likewise, if you are tempted to commit a sin that will bring you some gain, that gain will have little value to you once you compare it to the punishment that will be designated for you should you commit it. And he quotes a pasuk from Mishlei. The pasuk I have in the English translation, the pasuk says, "The bread of falsehood is sweet to man, but afterwards his mouth will be filled with gravel." It's like saying forbidden fruits are tasty, very tasty, but afterwards it can be just as sour as anything. The idea is also mentioned in a Star Trek episode for those from the 60s who remember. It was when Spock was supposed to find his shidduch, and apparently another Vulcan was after this designated Vulcan to marry Spock. So Spock does the gentlemanly thing and he yields. And he says to, his name is not Sarek, whatever the name was of the other suitor, of the rival, he says, "You will find that wanting is greater than having." And that's a very similar concept that we have also. But is it really an Aveira? Is it really an Aveira to be involved in reading newspapers on Shabbos? And it's hard to say that it's an Aveira. I looked at the Aruch HaShulchan. I looked at a few sources. You're not saying, I'm going to prepare this after Shabbos. They're not saying, let's go to this event, let's go online, let's buy tickets. They're not planning. So they're not doing anything overtly usher. In fact, you're allowed to discuss things that are in the world, and you should be an informed person. You should be interested in what's going on around you in current events. What's wrong with what they do? Of course, if something that you're doing on Shabbos, something that you're talking about, because we have the pasuk, that you shouldn't be looking for your objects, you shouldn't be doing things to help you acquire things on Shabbos, business, and daber davar, and the things that you speak on Shabbos, the speech you have on Shabbos should not be the same as the speech you have on the weekday. That's all true, but you're allowed to think business thoughts. Of course, world events you're allowed to think, unless they bring you tsar, unless they bring you pain, because it says, Oz tis aneg al Hashem. This is in the Shabbos morning Kiddush. If you do the right things and you don't think the wrong things, you don't speak the things that are prohibited on Shabbos, then tis aneg, you will exalt with pleasure on Hashem on Shabbos. So anything that brings you towards oneg Shabbos is mutter in speech. Anything that brings you away from oneg Shabbos to da'avon nefesh, to sorrow, to worrying, anxiety, that you should refrain from. That's halacha. So maybe a lot of the current events and maybe the news about the Mets falls into that category, that it's not Oneg Shabbos, but it's better not to know until Saturday night that they lost yet another one. I'm just kidding. But what are they doing wrong? It smacks that there's something wrong in that house, that the focus on Shabbos is, well, maybe we'll discuss the weekly portion if the brothers bring that home with them, the weekly portion. If not, they have so many other things to discuss on Shabbos, so many other, I wouldn't say more important, but to them, more conversational things that they want to do. What's wrong with that picture? So Rav Shimshon Pincus, and it's in the Nefesh Shimshon. I got it from the Hebrew, so I have to remember it. I didn't bring it with me. So he says there's a mashal. There's a mashal. Here's a parable. A person is going on a business trip, Monday, Tuesday, or a person's going to work. What does the person take in his briefcase? Person takes in the briefcase a sandwich, a drink, a thermos, something that you have kosher food with you. Not everyone is zocha like me to work right near Avenue M in Brooklyn, where everything is there. But you take with you, you brown bag it, and you have something with you for the day. What happens on Saturday morning? What if you go to your briefcase, you're in your house, you go to your briefcase, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. You don't need anything there. Why? You are home. You have the cholent on the blech or in the oven. You have food in the refrigerator. Everything, you have the urn, everything is ready for you on Shabbos. You don't have to do the things you do during the week. Rav Pincus says that's the idea of Shabbos. The rest of the week, we have to steal time from our busy schedules to learn 10 minutes, to learn a daf yomi, to daven with a minyan. We have to steal time. On Shabbos, the entire day is given to us for spiritual development. That's what Shabbos is. The food is not in the briefcase. It's not ready to go. The whole day is Oneg Shabbos. The whole day you can achieve spiritual greatness. What's the message? The message is we should not view Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon as a chance to catch up on what happened in the week. The week's coming. It's coming after Saturday night, after the Lulav Malka. It's coming. You're going to be busy the whole week. You'll have time to catch up. Shabbos is to catch what you can from elevating your soul, to enjoy the closeness, the specialness that we are given on Shabbos, to exalt, to bask in the glory of Olam Haba on Shabbos. And for that, perhaps this approach that I read to you is not what we should aspire to. It shouldn't be what we should have at our tables. Did you get the Times today? What did it say? Did you have a paper? Bring it over to my house. And I'm guilty. I have my neighbor bring me the Times in the afternoon. I'm guilty of this too. I'm guilty. So as chata'ai ani maskir hayom. Incidentally, there was a letter to the editor yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, The View from Kansas City by, I can mention his name, Bob Dougherty from Overland Park, Kansas. He mentions the writer of this article would have a problem if she lived in Kansas City. The Kansas City Star doesn't print a Saturday edition and doesn't deliver the Saturday Wall Street Journal until Sunday morning. This makes it a real clueless Sabbath. Okay. The Bergen Record is Shabbos Day. And that's why my wife decided not to get the Bergen Record anymore. but I get the Times digitally and the Wall Street Journal digitally. Okay, so those who want, this world it's created in such a way that those who want to have something will have something. But also those who want spirituality will find it. It's whatever you're looking for, you will find. Okay, we have this very interesting thing going on in this week's Parsha. We talk about the Ir Miklat, the city of refuge. And what's the rule about the person who kills by B'shogeg accidentally? And it happens. Chas v'shalom, it should never happen to anyone. It's traumatic, probably. It's a terrible thing. We have to be careful, and we should do everything we can to avoid human error, and that means sleeping well. Don't drive if you're on medication that you're not sure how it's going to work, and everyone has to struggle with this. Don't drive if you're sleepy, pull over, spend the night somewhere else. I mean, these are things we can do. Keep your car mechanically updated and keep it tuned. Or things that we can do. It's very dangerous, but it happened. What happens to the people in the Ir Miklat? It says, "V'yashav ba admos hakohen hagadol." Till the Kohen Gadol dies, you are stuck in the Ir Miklat. We're going to discuss what the Kohen Gadol could do on the next of our Torah, but listen to this. The Gemara tells us that the mothers of the Kohanim Gedolim were very concerned about their sons' longevity. And what did they do? They would, you have all these murderers, accidental murderers, praying for their son to die. The mother must be very traumatized. So what does she do? What every good mother does. The mother of the Kohen Gadol would supply the inadvertent murderers with food and clothing, Besapum lahen, mayin, mazon, and clothing and levushim. They would provide their needs. There would be a care package delivered to every Ir Miklat, city of refuge, so that the murderers would not be inclined to pray for the imminent death, because if the Kohen Gadol dies, then the food packages stop. Listen to the question. A person that is forced to go to the city of refuge has to leave his home, business, native city, acquaintances, and family. And it's very hard to be in another city that you cannot leave. It's very hard. Imagine you're here in Fair Lawn, all of a sudden, no, you're not. You're going to be stuck not Patterson is not so bad. You're going to be stuck in Overland, Kansas, where you can't even get the Wall Street Journal. Right. In that case, the question is, given all the difficulties that someone suffers with moving to another place or being forced to go to another place, does a little clothing or a little food, does a cupcake, does Zadie's cake make the difference? Is it really going to help you? Are you going to be satisfied? You're still going to be miserable. So Rav Zalman Sorotskin offers a very pragmatic idea. And he says, Eino doma, there's no comparison. Yes, a person that is in duress, a person that is in exile is going to pray. But there's no comparison. A person praying, if that person is starving, that person is unclothed, if that person is truly bereft of every comfort, there's no comparison to that tefillah, to whereas with a person is, I got my clothes, I got my food, I got my drink. Life isn't so bad. There's no comparison. It's not the same tefillah. So what these mothers would do is try to bribe the murderers, the accidental murderers. Don't be, be as comfortable as you can be. I guess in today's idea, they would pay for the They would pay for the video subscription, the cable subscription, and for the AC. Life shouldn't be so hard, so you shouldn't be so miserable, so you should pray to God with such fervor. There's another interesting story about the Ir Miklat, about the Kohen. Chazal tell us that if the Kohen Gadol dies before Beis Din, before Nigmar Hadin, before the conclusion of the sentence, before sentence is pronounced that so-and-so is guilty of accidental murder, has to be in exile in the city of refuge, before Nigmar Din, before the sentence is announced, a Kohen Gadol dies, then if there's another Kohen Gadol that's going to be appointed, there always is another Kohen Gadol waiting, then you can't leave. Before Gemar Din, you can't leave. You have to wait until the new Kohen Gadol dies. And that could mean a long sentence, a very long sentence. Why? What did this new Kohen Gadol not do? What did this new Kohen Gadol miss? I can understand the previous Kohen Gadol maybe did not teach the people correctly, did not exemplify the proper approach of being extremely careful, of not having averos, not having personal things that, if you are personally not developing yourself, then the forces of evil in the world, spiritual world, accompany such a person. Maybe the Kohen Gadol didn't do his job correctly, but he's gone, he passed. So why the new Kohen Gadol, why is it up to him? It's not up to him. So there's an answer from Rav Zaitchik, Rav Chaim Zaitchik. I think it's his son that my father was very close to, Rabbi Zaitchik in Flatlands, Brooklyn, who was a teacher. I think he's still teaching at Yeshiva of Flatbush Elementary School, a Rabbi, Rabbi Zaitchik. If it's not him, then it's his family, either an uncle or a grandfather from his family. The Kohen Gadol, the appointment of a Kohen Gadol, imagine when you become president of an organization that you want to fill that office, it's joyous, it's wonderful when it's announced that you are going to be getting that kavod, getting that position that you aspired for. It's a great joy. It's a wonderful joy. And I want to take the aside and tell you, I remember 1984 when President Reagan announced the winner of the Teacher in Outer Space. You remember the Challenger, the Challenger accident in January 1986, and they had all the finalists lined up, and Krista McAuliffe was announced as she's the winner. And you imagine, you could see the joy. She's going to be the teacher in outer space. That's a great, this is before you could spend $250,000 to go to the bottom of to go near the Titanic. Or you could spend how many millions of dollars to go up into SpaceX. No one from the civilian world ever thought, I'm going into outer space. And I saw the dejection on the face of the runner-up. And you can imagine, person wanted that. In January 1986, the runner-up, could you imagine? Everybody was devastated when Krista McAuliffe died with the other astronauts, except one person. Yes, she was unhappy for Krista McAuliffe, but imagine how happy she was and how thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu she was. I assume if she was a religious person, how thankful she was that she wasn't given that honor. So much so that years later, when they decided to do this again, and they offered her to go, she said, no, thank you. I don't have to go to outer space. Yes?
Getting back to the argument, do we have any writing that tells us about people that had spent a long time but how it affected them now going back to society. It's similar, I know it's not the same, because when you're in prison, as a prison, a lot of people have difficulty adjusting back to society. Is there any writings?
I'm not aware of that, because you're asking, is there any case study basically done on the,
Is there any writings about this? Because it seems that they're begging to get out.
right,
And the wishing that the calling dies.
right.
That it must have some effect.
It does have an effect on them, but also you got to remember, if they get out, the Goel Hadam, the avenger of the blood, is going to go after them, right? And that has happened in our history. And you go out, then you're going to be on the run.
So if you don't want to go out, then you stay.
You can stay till the end. I don't think you want. I assume you're allowed to stay there. I don't think you're right. And Neved, there would be the nirtzad in the ear, the hole in the ear. I don't think there's any hole in the ear made. There's any sign made to this person. I presume yes. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if afterwards he can go back. Yoshuv Elir Miklato Yoshuv to go back to the city is a tzibui or it's a permission. I'm not sure. I've got to look in the halacha for you. Yes.
So since there's only one Kohen Gadol
At a time.
all of the Arabic, it's not like one Kohen.
No. It's one Kohen Gadol for the entire Arei Miklat. Okay, but what did the Kohen Gadol do? And so Rav Zaychik explains that at that time when he's appointed, that's great simcha, great personal simcha. So the Kohen Gadol, a normal person, would take time to celebrate, would take time, would have a banquet, would bring karbanos. He's in the Kohen, the Beis HaMikdash. Are you praying at that time that the Beis Din will find reason to exonerate the murderer? Are you praying for the welfare of people who don't have their Gemar Din, the sentence pronounced yet? Are you praying for everybody? Or are you worrying about yourself, your kavod? So the Kohen Gadol is guilty, even at that time, because you're thinking about yourself. You're Kohen Gadol, you're not yourself. You are for everybody. Kohen Gadol does not stop for anything, not even for the death of a loved one. Kohen Gadol, it's not about you. You are representing Klal Yisrael. As soon as you are appointed, it's not kavod. As soon as you are appointed, you have to be the Kohen Gadol. You have to be the representative.
I never quite understood the whole concept. Already, big lots, old day. Someone who kills accidentally, and he's not guilty. So how can the real take it upon? That's like vigilante. How can he take it upon himself to try to kill a person? Killed accidentally before the trial was even finished, before the Beis Din even ruled whether or not. I understand how the Torah.
The Torah,
I don't understand.
I always compared it to Eshes Yafas Toar, the woman of beauty from the enemy, from the, that you're in battle, that the Torah, if you ask the Rav, he would say, don't do it, but we're not going to circumscribe our soldiers' basic human instinct and command them not to. I always compared that. The Torah will tell you, don't kill. But a person who is the Goel Hadam, who is the next of kin, or a kinsman to the one who was killed, the Torah understands the passion that a person is going to go through and the desire to find justice. The Torah is going to say, I'll give you a chance, but not in the Ir Miklat. The
person has to get to the Ir.
And to get to the Ir Miklat, you are given shluchei Beis Din, you are given an armed escort to protect you to get to the Ir Miklat. Yes, until you get in there, you are given armed escort, you're given a protection. Once you're in there, you're not protected if you come out.
But the point really is, You killed someone because you weren't careful enough. You put a ladder in, you dropped something from the roof. You are guilty to a certain extent, but you're not higher. When you're not like this, so therefore, I'm gonna move it. You're not that innocent.
Okay, I want to say two more things. One more thing about today's Yortzeit, this coming Yortzeit, where it says, "Vayal Aharon HaKohen el Har Har Har." Aaron HaKohen ascends Har Har Har, mountain of mountains, and he dies in the 40th year. B'chodesh hachamishi be'echad lachodesh, on the 5th month, on the first day of the month. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, Av. Died on Rosh Chodesh Av, coming up on Wednesday. Please look at what I have on the back of the Wall Street Journal article. This is the Matzeva, the Tzion HaMatzeva, the engraving on the tombstone of the Bobover Rebbe, who died 1970s, I believe. No, I'm sorry, as his wife passed away, 1980s, 1992, I forget the exact date. Look on the bottom where it says, B'chodesh hachamishi be'echad lachodesh. It's the same words of Aaron HaKohen on the first day of the 5th month, and then it says, Hu ar liyom Rosh Chodesh Av, Shnas Tavshin Mem, I think it's 1980. It's the night of the day before the day of Rosh Chodesh Av. The Bobover Rebbe also died on Rosh Chodesh Av. Rav Shimshon Pinkus again tells us, why is Aharon HaKohen the only Yortzeit? He's the only Yortzeit that is mentioned in the entire Torah. Why? And he says it's no coincidence that this is the time, Rosh Chodesh Av, is a time in Jewish history that we have to look at what Aaron did and learn from Aaron. Chazal tell us in Pirkei Avos, you should be from the Talmidei Aharon, be from the disciples of Aaron, Ohev Shalom, Rodev Shalom. Love peace and pursue peace. What does it mean to love peace and pursue peace? Most people enjoy a good fight, a good dispute, a raging controversy. It makes life more lebedik, right? During a machlokes, little guys suddenly come out of the woodwork, articulating their opinions and making their demands. Suddenly, these little guys, these little voices have an audience that will listen to them. We need a Rebbe like Aaron HaKohen to teach us to live peacefully, not to live for a moment of strife, live for a moment of peace. Here's a mashal. A little kid once saw a fire. What does a little kid see? Trucks, fire trucks blaring, firemen climbing ladders, carrying hoses, shouting orders, smoke and flames, water, the spray of the water, the rising steam, ambulances, TV cameras, everything's there. It is a great event. It is a lot of excitement, a lot of fun. So this little boy might get the wrong message. He'll say, that was cool. Let's have another one. Let me make a fire alarm. Let's see if we can get that again. Of course, nobody's going to do that, we hope. But that's the idea. Life is fun when there's something to shout about, to protest, when there's controversy. Aaron HaKohen teaches us life is good when it's quiet. Life is good, it's meaningful when there's no controversy. When you dampen machlokas, it doesn't become the fight that everyone can take sides. Gedolei Yisrael are our leaders. The Bobover Rebbe, and incidentally, I went to Bubba for 2 years in Crown Heights. If they didn't ask my father for more and more tuition, I have a raised hand, I'll get to it in a minute, for more and more tuition money, my father told them, I'll take him out and put him by where my father was teaching, Yeshiva Rambam, a day school like Noam today. And that's where I ended up going off the derech from Bobov. I could have easily been a Bobover. So the Rebbe, a short vignette about the Bobover Rebbe. When he was in the hospital, many people sent him food, and they often forgot to include the attendants. The Rebbe would proceed to cut each portion into 4 parts and partake only after each of his attendants had eaten his fill. Small things we have to learn. How do you avoid machlokas? How do you ingratiate peace? How do you make everyone around you peace? And the lesson, we have to have leaders. Like to the Bobover Hasidim, their Rebbe was a leader who loved peace and emulated Aaron HaKohen, and that's why he was, since he died on the Rosh Chodesh Av, it's not without notice. Lastly, I want to tell you, Ir Miklat, there were 6 of them. The pasuk says, Sheish Orei Miklat Tihi Yano, there should be 6 Orei Miklat, Ba'alehem Titnu, and on top of them, you have to ascribe, designate Arba'im Ushtayim Ir, 42 other little cities of refuge, little hamlets of refuge. There were 6 major cities, and they're named in Parshas Devarim and Sefer Devarim, but there were also 42 other cities, other little towns. We hopefully will never be chayav misa b'shogeg, misa b'mezid, chas v'shalom, misa b'shogeg. We should never do something like that. But there's another misa that we all do. Unfortunately, I do. The misa of Lashon Hara. By speaking Lashon Hara and listening to Lashon Hara, it is as dangerous, as deadly as Misa could be, as the Beis HaMikdash destruction proved. So Chazal tell us, there are Sheish Orei Miklat, 6 words, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. If you understand Shema Yisrael clearly, that's your Orei Miklat, that's your refuge to prevent you from being a quote unquote, a Rotseach, one who can bring bad to the world. And Alehem Titnu, 42 little towns. Bahaya Im Shamoa, the next Bahaya Im Shamoa until Kimei Hashemayim al Aretz, the second parsha of Kriyat Shema, is 42 words. Go and count them. So if we understand the meaning of Shema Yisrael, the lesson of the Avas Hashem, and together with Avas Hashem, that Hashem loves each and every one of us, how we are all one people. Whatever branch of Judaism or whatever non-branch of Judaism we are from, we are one people. And if we could put aside our small partialities, which are really small and insignificant, we could bring a country, a state, a world that is far more peaceful, like Aaron HaKohen envisioned. Let me answer the raised question. Who raised his hand? Recording, chat. Who's the chat? Oh, yes, my sister apologized for leaving early. My brother-in-law, Yaakov Mordechai Ben Tova, had surgery yesterday, but the nurse came to check on him, but Baruch Hashem, he is doing well, Baruch Hashem, surgery 2 days ago. Okay, are there any questions from the peanut gallery?
Nope.
No questions. Okay, it's been a pleasure. Everybody have a good Shabbos.
Rabbi, well done. Yasher koach.
Happy birthday, Rivka.